requesting everybody to take their seats. Thank you. Namaskar and good morning. Our guest of honor, Shri George Kuruvillaji, CMD Broadcast Engineering Consultants India Limited, eminent dignitaries, special invitees, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, a very warm welcome to the inaugural session of the 9th International Conference Data Center India 2022 on the theme Local Data Centers, Crucial Pillar to India's Digital First and Transformation, which is being organized by Bharat Exhibition and presented by Lightstorm. Ladies and gentlemen, our data center partners, BECIL, Nixie, and STPI, and the growth partners, Estricos Consulting, TechBridge, with conference partners being TechSpire, interconnection platform partners, DECIX, media partners, Communication Today, and the knowledge partners are Broadband India Forum. And ladies and gentlemen, as is customary, we begin every auspicious occasion by lighting the ceremonial lamp and invoking the gods and goddesses, seeking their blessings for the success of our endeavors. May I now invite our guest of honor, Shri George Kuruvillaji, CMD Broadcast Engineering Consultants India Limited, Mr. Tanuj Bhatnagar, our keynote speaker, Head of New Business Development Lightstorm. I invite Shri Vivek Duaji, General Manager CFA, BSNL, Dr. Devesh Tyagi, Senior Director, Software Technology Parks of India, STPI, Shri Golok Kumar Simli, CTO, Passport Seva Project, Ministry of External Affairs, Mr. Arun Goyal, CIO, Sir Gangaram Hospital, Mr. Gary Singh, President, IIRIS Consulting, and Mr. Shashidharan, Managing Director, Bharat Exhibitions, to kindly do the honors of lighting the ceremonial lamp. And ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together on the ceremonial inauguration of Data Center India 2022, the 9th International Conference. Thank you very much indeed. I would now request all the dignitaries to kindly grace the stage with their presence. Kindly take their seats on the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, let's put our hands together to welcome all the eminent dignitaries on the dais for the inaugural session. Thank you very much indeed. And once again, Bharat Exhibitions is extremely pleased to present the 9th edition of their industry flagship event, Data Center India 2022. And I have the proud privilege in inviting Mr. Shashidharan, Managing Director, Bharat Exhibitions, to kindly begin the proceedings of this international conference with his welcome address. Let's put our hands together to welcome him.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. A warm welcome to the 9th edition of Data Center India 2022. I'm very thankful to Sri George Kuruvillaji, the CMD of BESIL, which is the arm of the Ministry of Information Broadcasting, to be here to join us with us and sharing how the data center should be, and they're doing a lot of work on data center, along with other distinguished speakers, Tanuj Bhatnagar, who will be giving the keynote on the data center, Vivek Duaji, the GM BSNL, Dr. Devesh Tyagi, Senior Director, STPI, Sri Golok Kumar Simli, CTO, Passport Seva, which you see how the passport has traveled from 20 years will now, within 7 days you get your passport nowadays, that all the credit goes to the Golakji on this. Arun Goyal, CIA Gangaram Hospital, and Gary Singh, President, Iris Consulting. When we talk about data center, you must have heard a lot of news in the paper that data center is coming in UP in a big way, Maharashtra, everywhere, and it's going to be a billion-dollar opportunity. But how the data center should be? Normally, as per the government, we go for the L1. Is it the L1 is more important to creating a data center, and everybody says data is everything? Government is putting all efforts to keep our data safe. But is our data safe? That's a big question. Because whenever we download any app, we end up giving all our data to that. Yes, 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 because you are in a hurry to download that app. Whether it is WhatsApp, dating, any app for that matter. So are we safe? So we'll be listening some of that as well on the security. We have Dr. Chinmay also from here, from Asticos, who will be talking about on the security aspect as well. He's an expert in the security. Especially the youth who keeps on downloading the data, all the apps, sharing, keep on sharing. That's how the location, somebody says, okay, this gentleman is having a coffee here, this gentleman is having a lunch, but still we say data, data, data. Today, the Indian data center industry is witnessing a spectacular growth and poised to leapfrog as the country's data consumption continues to increase exponentially. This growth is propelled by multiple factors such as pandemic-led accelerated technology adoption, growing reliance on cloud computing, and the government digital push. Data storage regulation, expanding digital usage, and the much-awaited 5G rollout. Now you see 5G and people are started talking about 6G. Even we as Bharat Exhibition will be doing the 6G event next year because 5G we feel it's already outdated now. Compliance and regulations, standards of securing data, affordability of data services, a carrier natural data center. All these are the more important things when you create a data center. Keeping the hosted data center and private are some of the key pointers we all can take from today's event. I believe that will be experts who will be talking. I'm not an expert in data center, but I am sure the team here will be, on the dais will be talking about the various aspects of the data center. Without taking much of a time, ladies and gentlemen, I invite the next speaker. I'll hand it over back to Madam to invite the next speaker. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much indeed. And ladies and gentlemen, with regrets, we have to inform that eminent dignitary for the inaugural session, Mr. Arun Goyal, CIO, Sir Gangaram Hospitals, could not be present here at the moment. He had to rush for some urgent meeting to the hospital. And now, moving on, we now have the proud privilege in inviting our keynote speaker, Mr. Tarunesh Bhatnagar, Head of the New Business Development, Lightstorm. And I invite you, sir, for your keynote address. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together to welcome him.
Thank you, Shashi. Honorable guests, fellow members from industry, and dear friends. Lightstorm, we are really delighted to be part of this event. My name is Tarunesh Bhatnagar, and I head the new business development for Lightstorm. Lightstorm was incorporated in India in 2019, and we have grown faster than any other organization during these challenging times of COVID. What we do, we connect data centers. We speak about data centers here, but we connect data centers to a most resilient and less latency network. The guiding principles for Lightstorms have been to provide an open, transparent, and neutral access to cloud and internet. We have challenged the status quo so that business get digital infrastructure they deserve without any inefficiencies. Reimagining the network, keeping the customer at the center, we have re-engineered the traditional network architecture to address the pain points of our customers. Powering the growth to digital economy, we have designed platform to provide superior performance for demand SLAs, providing control back in the hands of our customers. Let me go back to what industry is talking about is creating 1 trillion opportunities by 2025 and creating about 60 to 65 million jobs. What are we doing in Lightstorm? I've grown from 45 people to more than 400 people now in South and Southeast Asia. However, network is developing nation face several challenges. Right now we are facing challenges in the network, including lack of fiber, high instance of fiber cuts leading to unreliability and high downtimes. Lightstorm is addressing this gap in the market by building the state-of-the-art digital infrastructure to connect emerging economies in South and Southeast Asia region and the rest of the world to open up the opportunities. We have adopted a design-first approach to understand customer pain points and then design a network architecture to address these challenges. For instance, we use utility-grade network to ensure massive ability, 100% uptime, and not susceptible to fiber cuts. Another differentiator factor for Lightstorm SmartNet, what we call a network as SmartNet, is that it uses point-to-point linear links support for leaf-spine mesh network architecture, allowing us to maximize the uptimes. The approach is very different from way networks are built in an emerging economy like in India. Presence in India, gentlemen, over the last 2 years, Lightstorm has built a utility-grade network, and we now have about more than 12,000 kilometers of fiber on the ground. We connect more than 45 data centers, and we are growing, might probably be touching 100 over the year. As India's only cloud-native service provider, we have created a niche for ourselves and already working for several hyperscalers, OTT players, including top 5 Fortune 500 companies. Lightstorm is part of I Squared Capital, which is a $30 billion company and owns the assets under management. We have our partners, EXA and BDX as well, and I Square basically envisaged to build a global fabric of state-of-the-art digital economy. Typically, this region is characterized by a massive surge in demand for quality internet, but are restricted by a lack of quality communication infrastructure. Lightstorm is resolving these issues by building a first-of-its-kind digital infrastructure fiber platform focused on resolving interconnection gap prevalent in data center, cloud, internet connectivity, and several emerging markets in South and Southeast Asia. We call ourselves disruptors. We see ourselves as disruptors in South and Southeast Asia. We are the only carrier-neutral network infrastructure provider in India and Southeast Asia. Lightstorm is also the only cloud-native service provider. We are growing fast. We definitely understand how the edge data center market is now coming up in India, and we want to be one of the first steps forward to come forward and look at how edge data center grows with all the content going closer to the mass and with the 5G incubation. Thank you very much, gentlemen, and I look forward to seeing you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much indeed, sir, for the keynote address. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I have the proud privilege in inviting our guest of honor, Sri George Kuruvillaji, CMD Broadcast Engineering Consultants India Limited, to kindly address the August House present here. Let's put our hands together to welcome our guest of honor.
Good morning, everybody. And I thank Bharat Exhibitions to invite me to this very special, the 9th Data Center Conclave, I would say. And this is one of the most important topics that we are looking at with the Honorable Prime Minister's thrust on digital governance, Digital India. It has become incumbent of all of us, and particularly those in government, to make sure that we develop such an ecosystem in the country that will enable the Prime Minister's vision of Digital India and digital governance. As has been already introduced, I'm chairman of BESIL, Broadcast Engineering Consultant India Limited, and we are a 100% owned company of Ministry of Information and Broadcasting. So originally serving 23 years with Doordarshan. In 2012, I joined in BESIL, so I come from the engineering services background. And we have seen over the last few years, I would say exponential growth in literally every area of technology, particularly digital technology. And so in 2016, when I took over as CMD BESIL, my first focus was that though we are from core broadcasting, we handle technologies which is all inclusive. So we had occupied the maximum number of transponders of ISRO. We were in those days occupying more than 20 transponders. So you can imagine nearly 75% of transponders were occupied by Doordarshan and All India Radio. And I was part of the tag meetings that used to happen with ISRO, with Telecom and Doordarshan, All India Radio, and the defense services together whenever we used to have meetings on them. We were, do the terrestrial transmission, whether it is shortwave, medium wave, FM frequency, modulation wave, or the network that we have today, the radio network, the microwave link between the studio and transmitters. And now, after the digitization of cable TV network, we were the agency which our Ministry of I&B has given the task to make it all digital cable TV, that is bringing the digital boxes across the country. So we did it in 3 phases, and the 4th phase is completed, and thereafter now most of the entire country, the digital cable, analog cable has been converted into digital. So we put up a monitoring center and ensured the digitization of the cable TV network. So then we became the auditors for TRAI and for TDSAT, for any complaints or any kind of dispute resolution in the cable TV industry between the broadcasters and the cable TV providers on the number of subscribers or any other related matter. We give the audit report, and on that basis, decisions are taken. So we support we are the auditors for the digital TV head end across the country. Now, with the FM radio, which developed into 86 cities, so BESIL was made to do the common transmission infrastructure where we connect all the FM transmitters together into a common infrastructure and feed it into a single cable onto the towers of Doordarshan and All India Radio. And that is how the entire FM transmission has been built by us and managed by us. So we are into the whole space of broadcasting. When I say it's actually the entire technology space that we are looking to. When we talk about data center in specific, so in 2014 we were tasked to build up a 900 TV channel monitoring setup in Suchna Bhavan. So when I joined BESIL, this was one of my first tasks to build up this center, which was state of the art, to download or downlink 900 TV channels which are registered in the country, to transcode it, to store it for 3 months, which is mandatory, and put in the automation software. And so the entire setup, it is a mini data center kind of an experience that we had. So we built up the entire thing, and today the entire monitoring of cable TV network, or let's say all the TV channel network, is done through the system which was built by BESIL in 2015. So we came into this business of storage, the servers, the IT networking, the automation, and as BESIL, we entered into the entire gamut of technologies. And as the smart cities started coming up, as the CCTV, the surveillance, the access control, the artificial intelligence, the machine learning, we are now in every space of it. We are doing a project called language localization, for Ministry of Education, where we are translating the lectures given by professors in English language into 12 different languages. So we are doing speech to text, then text to text translation, and then again text to speech translation. With all this time synchronization, we're making it possible or available. In the coming days, you will see the lectures, anybody can choose their language and can listen to the language which is Prime Minister's deemed that every student should be able to learn in their native language. So we are part of that language legislation where the artificial intelligence, the NLP, the natural language processing technologies, and all these technologies are being used. So when all these things happened, so we started growing and developing and participating in tenders and working with different government departments, the state government, how we can contribute ourselves to be, the last mile deliverers of the technologies or making it happen. As you would all know, in Government of India, Shashi Dharanji was talking about the L1 business, and so you know that in order to get an order, purchase order from government, how much each company or an OEM has to struggle. And the OEM keeps shouting and going and marketing, we have this one of the best technologies, but that's okay. But how do you get it implemented into the place where it is best suited for? That's the challenge that today is and was. And we as BESL are trying to play that connecting role between the available technologies and a government department to become the bridge between making it happen, which is the Prime Minister's dream, and which, being a government public sector, is our desire, and it's our, I would say it's our duty. I would say it is, it is for this reason that we are there. The public sector basically engages the common man or connects the common man to the government systems and department. So this is where we come from. So when I look at data center, it is growing so fast. We already know that if data center, it is defined, maybe if you define it by two major parameters. One is that how many square feet of area a data center occupies. And number two is that what is the power consumption of the IT infrastructure the data center has. If we have to define a data center, these are the two things by which we define. Earlier we say so many terabytes of storage, but that does not define a data center now. Today we look at, how much of power it is consuming. So today when we look at, if you look at the various data that we have in the public domain, more than 1 lakh, square, feet of, the data center land occupation or the space occupation, and around 700 megawatts of power, the IT power, I would say, the power required to sustain those IT equipment. This is the level at which we are today. But the way we are growing and the demand is growing, it will double itself in next 2 years. And that is where the challenge and that is where the opportunity to all of us who are sitting over here, that we can grow up and grab this challenge and take this challenge and grow our businesses and grow our departments, grow our organizations to have all these, technologies put, across in the, by the use of data center to have all these technologies. We've talked about, so therefore, the first thing, the challenge that comes up because of this large development and the growth possibilities for the data center is that whether it is a green kind of technology, whether it is a sustainable kind of a data center that we are looking up. And I'm sure that as we deliberate today, various technology providers, the OEMs, we will talk, you'll be talking about this very important area is that whether our data center, is it a green technology, is a sustainable technology. So the parameters that look at is PUC, which talks about, how much is the consumption or power, consumption effectiveness that we have, which talks about, how much efficiently we are using the power to have the data center. And the scale, generally, routinely, if I'm correct, it will be around between 1.6 to 1.8. That calculation happens where the total infrastructure power consumption divided by the power consumed by the IT infrastructure or the data center. That ratio talks about how efficiently we are using the power. So typically, it is between 1.6 to 1.8%. Now, as we grow up and as the technology provided, if we bring it down closer to 1, that should be one of our goals, to make it as a green or more greener kind of data center. Because as the numbers grows, as the power grows, a small percentage will make a huge difference for the country. The number 2 is that whether we can use the solar technology or the wind energy or any alternate technology to generate that power for the data center. That is another challenge. If we can do that, the carbon emission or zero carbon kind of target, or how close that we can reach into the zero carbon target, that should be one of our major concerns to all the big data center providers and all the technology providers who are working in the space of making a data center greener. That is one thing which I would like to flag, and let the deliberation bring out this thing, what is the best that is available today. And we would love to know also ourselves that how we can engage with you to make greener data centers. The second part is, of course, the data the localization that we talked about, where the data is housed. As Shashi Dharanji pointed out, we put all our credentials onto a different applications, apps, and where does the data go and how it is used or misused. That is what is a big challenge to everybody and to the government and to the country. And therefore, the RBI, brought out a dictate that in 2018 that all data which is concerning to financial technologies, the storage, the processing, the transmission, everything should happen from the servers which are housed in the country. That means it should not go outside. And so, again, this is a big opportunity that we have to have data center for all the financial transactions that happens in the country has to be done through the servers which are housed in the country and moves within the country. So this is another area, that is data localization, that we work on. The third thing that I would like to maybe mention here is a resilient, a resilient and maybe a secure one, which is what is again very important. So we have been recently working on cyber security, and because a new area, and we entered into there, and we are already partnering with good and the best people across the country, how we can bring in the cyber security part of it into government servers, into government data centers, so that whether it be the cooperative banks or whether it be our organizations which which are sensitive organizations which need cyber security interface, we are positioning ourselves that if we can help that out, we'll be available to do that, and we're already working towards that we can partner with the right people who will bring in the best cybersecurity, interfaces into those data centers and the security concerns and the security part of it. As resilient we should be. Every data center knows that we must have proper, DCs, the DRs, the recovery data centers, and distributed network so that we do not lose the network. All those things, I think most of the data center operators, they work on this thing, that we have a resilient as well as a secure data center. So therefore, the design is very important. So people who are the architects of data center and who can work on the best data center, I think we need to value them and need to engage them. Like for any good building, you need the best of the architect. Whether it is a city architecture, you need the best of them, so that one mistake that is done at the inception cannot be corrected for years together, and we continue to lose because we have done a wrong architecture at the foundational level. So when we are building particularly the big data centers, it's very important that we have a data center architect, the best of them, available across the world or in India, to be part of that data center build-up ecosystem. Because how the network is structured will save a lot of cost and energy and money to each data center operator. How we can be more of a edge data center where we reach to the have smaller, data networks available nearer to the user agency so that, the latency of the data is very small and it is, quickly scale and reaches up, the speed increases. All those things become, very important as we grow up in the network. So I think these are few things which came into my mind and I thought I need to share with us. And we would love, as I say everywhere, all the good private OEM companies, the startup companies, if you have technologies which can help the government of India, you can come and partner with us. We are open to partnerships so that we know that there is a problem statement or there is a need for such and such data center or such and such technology to be made available to a particular department or organization. You can come to us, we can build up and stitch up an ecosystem together and present to the organization and thereby participate in tenders together or do it if it is very confidential and secure network. You can partner with us. We can do the due diligence, present it to the client, and do whatever is required to make this nation to be a rich data center nation and have our own Make in India data centers, so that what the Prime Minister's dream of digital governance, we make it possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, sir, for that insightful address from you. And now moving on, for the special address, ladies and gentlemen, I have the proud privilege in inviting our very special guest, Shri Vivek Duaji, General Manager, CFA, Bharat Sanchar Nigam Limited. And let's put our hands together to welcome him for the special address.
Thank you. A very good morning. Namaskar. Local is more important than global, right? So to connect with people is always a passion, personally for me, because from there the learning starts. Myself, Vivek Dua. I'm a General Manager at BSNL Corporate Office. I head the fiber to home and Wi-Fi business. Sorry. So before coming to corporate office, I have spent almost 10 years in data centers, my early days. It was started 2010 from Hyderabad, when I was heading the billing and other operations for South Territory, and then I moved to North. So by living in South part of India, it was culturally very enriching, but technologically I found that they are at least 10 years ahead of what we think sitting in North. One simple example which I cite quite often, it was 1 month or 2 months I was in Hyderabad, and I was lunchtime I was home, and then I got down from the car and I was handing over my electricity bill to my driver. And when I was handing over, the security guard just approached me. He said, "You are handing over the electricity bill to your driver?" I said, "Yes." I said, "Because last time, first month, I tried to pay, it was a long queue, and then he advised me, you come 1 o'clock and then you can pay the bill easily. So I'm sending my driver at 1 o'clock. He said, "Why don't you pay online?" This was an advice coming from somebody who was like 55 years. I was 35 that time. And then that advice really hit me. I said, online, because I had moved from Chandigarh to Hyderabad, and Chandigarh that time, the online payment didn't work. So I asked him, "It really works?" He said, "Yes, it works. Read the instructions." No, we as North India are very casual about reading instructions given on certain things. No, so it was a very small, a bus ticket size kind of a bill, very small. So again, to go through that instruction was cumbersome. But still, I just casually read that. I said, "Nothing important here." No, read it properly. He insisted, read it properly. Then I again read, the URL link was given. And then reading properly, I said, now he's stressing so hard, I need to go home and then try that rather than be more offensive here. And that was the end of my physical payments to the counters in the electricity department. So that's the way the society thinks. That's the way the technology culture evolves. And that's how everybody starts contributing to the growth of technology. It's not through the international papers and all those things that we keep talking about that the learnings come. A lot of learning comes because of that thing that you must have seen, the Slumdog Millionaire. No, he was there. And then whatever he answered was because of the practical learnings he had, and he could answer everything that was there in that big arena. So we see a lot of champions, frankly, within India, down south. That's how the technology has really evolved fast in south part of India, then west part of India. And we have more salesmen sitting out of north who sell technology to everybody around India or outside India. But that's good, short and crisp. I would like to briefly put what is the agenda that has been shared. I'm sorry today my boss was expected to speak here, but then Shashiji asked me that because he's not coming, you need to spare time and do that job. So I'll try to do my best and see that I'm able to put across few important learnings of mine. But I thought I'll just put few important things in front of you: building resilient data centers, decarbonizing data center, sustainable practices, then modernization and rapid deployment, industry-friendly regulation. Now to put few facts quickly before you, all startups have a cloud-first strategy. Today, the ecosystem of data centers definitely has that participation from the startups happening because they want to move fast, and technological hurdles should not hamper the growth of business. That's how all of them latch on to the cloud. 2010, when I attended one workshop of Google in Hyderabad, I saw at least 200 engineers who were invited by Google into that workshop. And it was such a beautiful discussion that happened about using the cloud for all the innovation that was happening by those engineers sitting back in their homes, not sitting in the offices, right? So cloud-enabled innovation those years, and you can imagine very well 2022, what should be the situation today. So cloud definitely is one of the biggest enabler in innovation, and that's how the demand is increasing. Now comes the data security, which is a very big challenge when everybody talks about data. Equally important as the security of data. So the challenge that it poses, individuals who are into the innovation process get little scared. And last and importantly, as I said, because demand is increasing, supply side is also exponentially increasing. Kuruvilla sir mentioned 1 lakh square feet, but my imagination would go beyond 10 lakh minimum that we would be having in this country, because almost 30,000 is contributed by BSNL. So definitely the country, the square foot or the data center floor space would be much, much larger. So supply side is exponentially increasing. There is no doubt on that. Now coming to the important theme, which is the sustainable practice for you, just to see that the time is properly utilized. Have a look at this picture. So having this picture for a data center conclave may look awkward, but situation happens to be very similar in data center also when you look at data. When you go to a doctor, the first thing they'd ask you is to check your weight and then tell you that a good number of problems could be related only to your weight, not to anything else. And you just need to cut down the crap and focus on the job, be thin and lean. I remember my days. Initially, I had a lot of luxury in terms of compute and storage I had in data center. So one guy would come and say that, no, we have to have the bill run, and you are asking to do 10 lakh bills in a window of 4 hours. You give me so much of compute, you give me so much of storage. I had half a petabyte of SAN storage those days, 2010. It was quite a luxury. And I said, okay, allocate him. Because I have a data center in charge, those folks from hardware and the software and everybody would be reporting to me. And I felt like a king allocating left and right whatever I had. But hardly 3 months into all this funny business, 4 months or 5 months into the billing process, the guy came up and said, sir, You asked to complete the billing in 4-hour window, now it has increased to 7 hours. I said, this is not possible. How you can do that? Because I have the final business objective of doing the bill run in 4 hours. You can't increase it to 7. The next month it increased to 10, whatever small adjustments I could do in the first month. Then it increased to 12 hours. Then it was a shocker to me. From 4 hours, it has gone to 12 hours within the 3 to 4 months. There must be something seriously going wrong. Then one of the smart guys around, he was the database administrator, I said, what's happening here? Every time you are doing some database tuning, I hear that, and then things do improve marginally, but not substantially. So what is the problem? He said, there's something called cold data, and there's something called hot data, if you understand. He was a boy of 23 or 24, I was 35. So somebody of 22, 23 asking me if you know cold data and hot data, they can explain you more, else let me do my job. I said, please sit down, explain me for half an hour, and then maybe I can take some decision. He said, while the bill run is happening, there's a lot of data on the tables which is not required, but we still have to have that data in the databases because that's a mandate you have given to keep the data. And then hot data getting mixed up with the cold data, probably the things would be slowed down, and then net result would be you see from 4-hour window, it has increased to 12-hour window. I'm narrating these stories because everybody faces the same problem. Even today when I talk to people back in Hyderabad, Pune or Bangalore, though from a half a petabyte, the data centers are like 5 petabyte or 10 petabyte, the problems have not changed. Only the narrative have changed, but the solution will still remain to be the same, which I am explaining shortly to you. The mixing up of hot data and cold data is something that I ventured, I figured out, and then by the advice of that 22-year boy, which came that you please decide better on your archival policy. He talked about archival policy to me. He said, your contractual requirement is keep the data in the databases for 1 year because some billing complaint may come and we'll have to fetch the invoice from the system. And then if it is not in the production system, then probably, sir, you blame us, so everything has to be kept. I look back at the contract requirement, and the contract was written like 7 years back. Because tendering process, work awarding, execution, and first year into the operation, if not 7 years, it was 5-year-old kind of a documentation done for the contract. And when I looked at that piece, I found that today, if a bill is issued and customer is to complain about the invoice or the bill, the time period given by the regulator is 3 months. So you need not have invoices in the system older than 3 months. And if anything older is required for any kind of a retrieval in future, let it go into the archives. So what flab or the extra fat I was maintaining in my system called the cold data was cut down by 50%. And next month, I was really lean and thin. And my system came back to some 6 hours or 5 hours. So the idea here is that the business agility depends on the data agility. That's the message I wanted to convey so that the decision makers can take benefit of this, which in turn is dependent of making sense out of tons of data that are sitting in the data center. So if business decisions are to be fast, the head of the organization, the CEO and the CIO must handshake regularly on how data is moving in the data center. I'm repeating the word, how the data is moving in the data center. The motion of data has to be closely looked at. And somebody may say, this silly thing called archival policy, is it the CEO's job? If the business does not require the data, you please remove that data. For compliances, you can keep it elsewhere. The hot data, which is required for business decisions, you keep it in the live systems. And then take your decisions faster and better. So hot data versus cold data is one argument, one discussion, one deliberation that must happen very regularly by the business owners. That's the message I wanted to share with all of you. You probably may seek some fun in talking about petabytes of data that you have in your data center, but that's not the key thing that you should look at. The agility of business is more important, and if it's thin and lean, it could be gigabytes or megabytes, you could be still better. I remember one of my seniors, my CGM of the IT projects, Mr. Sen, he was asked by one of his friends, both of it like 55, 57, and because Mr. Sen was heading the IT projects, and he was a popular man in BSNL, his friend asked him, "Hey Sen, you are a popular man, but I do not know what is data center." So he was privately asking him so that people don't take it otherwise that a 57-year man doesn't know what is a data center. So Sen was also a little taken back how to respond to his friend who thinks that he is very, very smart and handling data centers. So his answer should not confuse him. So Sen Saab said, "Hey, you know what is a computer center?" That man obviously said, "Yes, I know computer center." That was a common term used those days. He said, "We have 200 computer centers in BSNL. If you put all of them together into one place, then it is called a data center." And the other man said, "Wow, very good, very good. The nice answer, simple answer you have given me, I have understood." So explaining the concept data center itself, 2010, was a very big challenge. And if today you talk about data center, I think people who are into first year of engineering also understand what is a data center. So explaining the whole concept today has become relatively much easier. But the smart piece is seriously missing. The smart piece of data center is still today seriously missing. People talk about smart cities, but nobody talks about smart people. That's the problem we are continuously entering into. We are being thrown with a lot of jargon, a lot of concepts coming from outside India. We end up selling those concepts, but to make systems agile, faster, smarter, you need smarter people, and smarter people need to think wiser. So on the last thing that, only last two things that I'll touch quickly before I wrap up. One is, talking about the government interventions or the government regulatory roles. Probably you can go through some good consultation papers which have already been floated by a regulator, inviting inputs from everyone. And then you can see in those concept papers, there's a lot of talk about data centers, the CDNs, the interconnect exchanges, and the data ethics and related things. So it's a very interesting 120+ page document, and a lot of consultation has happened on this. Chain reaction. So you can't handle those problems which are in the Hyderabad, then Cisco in Bangalore, then NetApps, and you have all the good papers and the architects, everybody moving around. So energy is a serious problem, and as Sir said, you need to have the right architects in the first place in your team to address this problem. And having architects of a global experience will be much more beneficial than doing some cost cutting on the architect and then ending up spending multiple times on the operations. So we need to be very, very careful about who is our architect for the data center or the facility as a whole. So Sir has already explained about the power utilization or the power usage effectiveness. I think most of you are aware. I just put it on the screen for you for the sake of convenience. But the important in my last slide is about the energy forecast, which is very, very alarming. This was published somewhere around 2019 end, which says the global electricity demand, data centers would be contributing to almost 21%. And within that, if you see, the networks and data center, the blue and the green, are like taking almost 80% of the consumption. So if we are not focused on this problem and the solutions around it, the energy havoc is going to be huge. So we'll have a lot of speakers speaking in detail on these things. You'll have more fun and enjoyment listening to all of them. So I thank you for a patience hearing, and then let's continue with the session. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, sir, for that informative presentation we had from you. And now, ladies and gentlemen, for the special address, I would like to invite Dr. Devesh Tyagi. He is the Senior Director, Software Technology Parks of India, STPI. And please put your hands together to welcome him.
The policies and plan which government has envisioned
So data company we at that point of time. We started with 3 centers in the country. And today, now we are having 62 centers across the country, and we are present in length and breadth of the country. We came up with a policy, we called it Infrastructure Service Providers Facility Policy, wherein which we ourselves didn't create, because STPI tried to be play a promotional role and a facilitator role. We take industry as a partner with us. So we thought that the plan and policies will be driving, and other infrastructure things and other things, services, the industry, it should be leave to the industry. At that point of time, we created what we call the collaborative environment, and that we had started only few thousand export from the country, and I am happy to announce that during last financial year, the IT exports from STPI registered unit had reached to 6.28 lakh crores. And this industry is currently providing 50 lakh jobs across the country to our youths. So this is the journey which we had undertaken in the last 3 decades. And we had developed ourselves along with the industry. So first thing that we created was the IT infrastructure through our centers. And most of our centers are in Tier 2, Tier 3 cities. We started with Tier A cities, Tier 1 cities, then we moved slowly to Tier 2, Tier cities, because we see the next development will come from these cities only. You see, we can give the example of Indian cricket team. Previously, what is the difference between today's cricket team and yesterday's cricket team? What we see today, that most of our players are from the smaller cities. And previously, they were coming from all big cities. So we also envisioned that, and we started rolling out our services in Tier 2, Tier 3 cities. Along with this, STPI has started creating data centers since last 5 to 6 years. I will just give you a brief how STPI center is envisioned and it is created. We had a state executive board, and whatever state government, whosoever great state government wants, they approach us with a proposal that these are the forthcoming IT destinations, and STPI should be established here. So we call it as a state contribution. So generally, a state government provides us land, and on that, the infrastructure is built by STPI. And each and every STPI center is typically has a data center. Why? Because when we started, we found there was no computing power, no bandwidth connectivity in the country, and no IT infrastructure. So we decided to provide this to the entrepreneurs which were jumping into the IT business. So at that point of time, we were only saying to the entrepreneurs that you come with a proposal and we will provide you everything. So our centers were providing computing facility, data center facility, as well as the bandwidth services. Today, we had only changed to that extent that nowadays we say just walk in STPI office with your laptop, and then you start doing your business, exporting business with the help of the statutory services which is provided by STPI. So when we reached around 2015-16 with the announcement of Digital India program, Honorable Prime Minister, we also aligned ourselves with the vision of Ministry of Electronics and IT. The main vision was that we were shifting from IT/ITES business to the being a product nation for the country. Because we had done very well in service sector, we are contributing around 50 to 55% of total IT services business in the world, across the globe. And we don't have anything in products. So that only very minimum we are standing there. So our ministry's vision is now to get our IT industry from service industry to the product industry, because there is the wealth there and it is the future. So aligned to that, we had started establishing Center of Entrepreneurship, what we call them. We call them a Center of COE, Center of Entrepreneurship in the emerging technologies. So till today, we had established around 21 Center of Entrepreneurship across the country. And we are doing we are a Center of Entrepreneurship in AI, we have in data analytics, we have in blockchain, and you name anything. And apart from this, we had also gone into various domains as well. Our Center of Entrepreneurship at Chennai is called as FinBlue, which is in financial technologies. We had opened Center of Entrepreneurship in agri-tech, beside others. Recently, we are in talk with the ISRO, so that because they are now opening up their data for the consumption of and that conversion of the data and providing that data to the persons as large or people as large, we are going to sign an MOU with ISRO, and we are going into that domain as well. So how we can do this? Because typically I told this journey was not envisioned previously, but with advent of digital technology, we have to do these things. Because every center which we were creating, we made that center as data center ready. The strength and other things that are required to create a data center, we kept our IT infrastructure ready previously itself. So whatever need till STPI is having today, we do not rush for the infrastructure. We are having enough infrastructure, and we are providing those services to the startup, like data analytics service. We have to establish a data analytics lab. We were able to do it in last time period of 3 to 6 months. Because that infrastructure was ready, only we have to take the IT infrastructure, active components with us. So this is the vision we are carrying forward, and we definitely see that data centers are the future. Apart from this, STPI has made its service as well as online. So previously, 5-6 years back, the IT entrepreneur has to visit STPI center to get those statutory services. But presently, the IT entrepreneur need not to visit STPI centers, and you will be happy to note that we are providing 42 type of services to IT entrepreneurs at their doorsteps. So this has happened that due to the digitization which we had envisioned in 2015, and today we are standing here. So I invite you all, because STPI now envisioning further things, that we want to use as all our centers as computing data centers. So recently we are floating RFP for this,
We had already got some responses, and we are evaluating that. And we want that our main data centers, which are 5 in numbers, and along with that, the existing 57 data centers, which are mostly in tier 2, tier cities, we are going to provide edge computing service to this. Apart from this, we are coming up with 25 new centers as well. And definitely we are going to, in collaboration with the industry, provide those services to the industry in coming time. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much indeed, sir, for that wonderful address. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I have the proud privilege in inviting Shri Golok Kumar Simliji, CTO Passport Seva Project, Ministry of External Affairs. And ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together to welcome our very special guest for the inaugural session. Over to you, sir.
Very good morning to all of you. Let me at the outset thanks Bharat Exhibition, Sri Sasidhar and team for inviting me here. I also greet all my co-panelists on the dais and the audiences present here. Some of the previous speaker has spoken about the green technology on the data center. How do we architect and design the data center? But I'd like to put up some other perspective of the data center. The way the digital journey we have started in India, let's say, in and around 2005-06, when we actually started National E-Governance Plan of India in the country. And from there on, if I really see the way we have moved ahead on the data center side, especially in terms of applications, in terms of businesses, in terms of industry participation into the data center parlance, I think we have moved ahead from the traditional way and conventional way of looking the data center into today. If you ask me, we are talking about how do we provide a hyperscaler, how do we provide a hyper automation kind of a scenario into the data center. And why is that? Why is that those scenarios are evolving? Let me quote a small example. If I give example of my Passport Seva program itself, I'm crossing a metadata size of around 12 terabyte. I'm also crossing the documentation size almost 90 terabyte. Now imagine this is one application I'm talking about. And there are so many such applications within not only the government system, but other side of from the industry side, private side. And if this is the growth of the data, how do we see that that the data is kind of a managed, maintained? Our colleague from BSNL was saying that we must understand our data sets well. We must also understand our data points well, saying that what is our transactional data, what is the data we need to archive, what is the data strategy you have in place. Most of the time, at least I have realized that we do not have a data strategy in place. We do not understand our workload well in terms of transactional workload, in terms of archive workload, in terms of data sets which we are dealing with in the data centers. Now, when we are talking to the industry, again, what we realize that, this kind of segregation, classifications, one is at the data side, second is how do your application is behaving on the data centers, and third is what is the actual beneficiaries and masses are seeking from in terms of, let's say, services or benefits or any schemes per se, right? So if you collaborate and kind of a combine all together, I think there are two factors which is coming out very clearly and which we are realizing that. The first factor is that we call PPP. We have gone much ahead from some sort of a post facto kind of a scenario or investigations or analysis. Today, we are talking something about the predictive scenario. So I am really looking for a data centers which can predict Can it predict the load? Can it predict the kind of a businesses I am looking for? And if it can predict, how do I take a proactive action? So another point I'm looking into the data center is, can my data center take a self-correction, auto-response kind of a scenario, right? And some of these scenarios we are already achieving with the use of AI ML into the data center aspects. I'll also give another example. We have also seen a scenario saying that most of these services, now we are trying to deliver nearest to the users. Wherever the user is, which location they are, which or whatever devices they are trying to access these applications or services. Now, if that is the scenario, the shift is, it is no more from data all the way traveling to a compute. It's other way now. It is compute to data. It is no more data to compute, but we say data to compute. So the new data centers, the new kind of a hyperscaler we are looking for, is can the data center give me that facility wherever user is, which devices, or kind of a 24/7 kind of a scenario if I need to access, can I have that kind of a features, facilities, availability, performance from my data centers. So that is one of the shift we are observing. The second shift we are observing, especially after COVID-19, this coexistence of physical plus digital, coexistence of on-premises plus cloud. This coexistence is going to exist for another 3, 4, 5 years. Definitely for 3 to 5 years. Now, if that is the case, another kind of we as a government or someone from industry, we need to ensure that how do you coexist, but still we do business. Especially after COVID, whenever we realize that every corporate network, every corporate data center, every corporate application went into a remote mode. And the kind of shift we are observing in terms of workforce realignment, in terms of your workload readjustment, in terms of your workflow, the application realignment, and in terms of content and context. In all sense, if you see, that coexistence is going to, as I said, exist for another 3-5 years. So the data center designing, data center architecture, whatever we are doing, especially on the government side, the movement is on a hybrid way. We will continue to exist our critical and kind of a sovereign data, maybe on a on-premises kind of a scenario, but we will also be looking some side of my kind of a routine load or kind of a other load into a cloud kind of an environment. So can I have that kind of a coexistence when I look towards the industry? Can I have that kind of a traceability, visibility, and observability in the data centers when I'm creating such facilities for masses at large or citizen at large? The other two factors I would also like to mention here, saying that if you see various use cases, for an example, I'll quote 2 use cases. Whenever we are trying to deliver services, one is the section of the society or the masses who are really kind of availing those kind of internet facility or computer at home or that kind of a broadband connectivity our earlier speakers are talking about. But think and imagine of those section of society, those section of masses who probably do not have access to computer and internet at home, who probably do not have that luxury to have that kind of a bandwidth at the remote places, and those illiterate and kind of a semi-literate masses. Now, if I'm looking to a data center where my applications are hosted, can I give that same experience to my users staying at those remote corner of the villages or those semi-literate and illiterate masses? In a way, I am trying to mention here, saying that can the services and facilities I am delivering from the data center give the way they understand? No, the services are available the way they want to access. And probably this is one of the big achievement we could achieve in the Passport Seva program. Today, believe me, either you apply from Delhi, Mumbai, Chennai or Hyderabad, or in a remote person applying a passport services from a remote corner of, let's say, UP, MP, Maharashtra, absolutely there is no difference. But it was not so easy to achieve, no, in terms of data center design and architecture, in terms of delivering services closer to the user, in terms of delivering the services the way, the language they understand, right? So how do we achieve those kind of a scenario when I am thinking for a data centers, right? So that is one of the major factor. The other factor I must mention, saying that when I'm dealing so much of a data, so much kind of a categories and varieties of data, in terms of if you see the security and privacy concerns, most of the time we see that the security and privacy, we think it lies upon processes, it lies upon rules, regulation sides, or maybe at the best it lies upon your businesses you are dealing. But no, it's not rest there, but it also kind of a touches upon your platform and infrastructure you are creating, right? So in terms of dealing with the data security, what I personally believe, saying that one side it is your processes, your policies, your kind of the kind of businesses you are dealing, but at the same time when we are designing our data centers and applications, we also must see that that security principle is taken care by design. When I say by design, right from your database tier to your host tier to your OS tier to your application tier, then to your perimeter tier, and maybe you are exposing some part of your module through the cyberspace. If you take care of this kind of a security design, access and authorization principle into your data center, whether it is a on-prem data center or a cloud variance data center, and if you can create that kind of a traceability and observability across the ecosystem, which probably somehow I am able to manage that, I think one way you are in a kind of a assuring and ensuring yourself that even if there is a security breach happening, or even if there is a security incidents happening, you are not landing into the cyber crisis kind of a scenario. Because you understand your holistic ecosystem end to end. You also know if there is a cyber incidents or let's say some sort of a security breach, how do you come out from that scenario? So the most of the, again, scenario what we are observing, saying that when we are defining and designing our security framework into the data center, I think the holistic way, looking into the security framework, going up to the user, and then coming back saying that what kind of tools and technologies I have deployed, which ensures me, even if there is a security incidents happening, there is a way to come out. We are not kind of moving towards a cyber crisis kind of a scenario. And most of these critical applications, whether it is power sector, whether it is health sector, whether it is passport, GSTNs, I think every one of us, we have to think and act on those directions. The last thing on the privacy concerns, I think when we are collecting data, if you can realize something we will call principal owner of the data, something we call custodian of the data, and then something we call secondary use of the data. Now, where we need to focus? We need to focus the user of the data. It is no more the data is lying with the principal owner of the data or with the custodian of the data, but most of the time what we are realizing that the data is being used for some secondary purposes. If I am using that data or your data for some secondary purpose, how do I make accountable the user of the data mostly into the your privacy framework? I think most of our laws evolving, including the data protection law which is coming forward, we will realize that it is not simply the principal owner of the data, but right up to the user of the data, how they will be brought into the privacy framework. The last thing before I stop my speech, I must say that ICT is no more, it is no more, now we call information and communication technology, but ICT is all about innovation, collaboration, and transfer of knowledge. If we can convert that ICT into this ICT, I think whatever we are looking forward in terms of data centers, in terms of our citizens and masses at large, I think the opportunities look very bright and no kind of a very good in my way. So thank you very much for patience listening.
Thank you very much indeed, sir, for those valuable inputs we had from you. And now, ladies and gentlemen, for the next special address, I have the privilege in inviting Mr. Gary Singh, President IIRS, RIS Consulting. Let's put our hands together to welcome our special guest for the special address.
Respected Chief Guest, Kuruvilla-ji, power-punched professional on the dais, it has been wonderful to listen to you, very visionary but at the same time very practical thoughts. Great audience, including my respect for people in uniform and great players like Flo Daniels who've been adding on to the growth of data centers in India. But my first thank to Shashidharan-ji for putting all this so well together. Not only it's an apt topic, but he's got everybody who's relevant to the topic here. So thank you so much. My thoughts are definitely a little different. I'm the party spoiler today. I know you would have seen a lot of this data regularly, and I think there has been a lot of cheer in the market. We're growing at a great pace, and CAGR is this much, and a lot of other details of how this complete data center industry has been growing. But if I really look at the factors which are growing, then we need to map whether we're growing up to the potential. I'm very sure all are aware that how our great visionary Prime Minister Modi ji has given the drive for digitization. And this digitization is across all functions. It's not only what most of us who are staying in cities look at Paytms and digital payments, even how the interaction with the rural class takes place, there is a lot of digitization there. How even these subsidies reach there, how they monitor, there's a lot of. So even governance in seeing digitization, this definitely is one very big factor which is a growth. We are reaching a service-driven economy. Typical first world, if you look at, there is too much of a service-driven rather agrarian economy, which traditionally we've been looking at. There's a lot of rapid addition of service overall and linked to the SaaS and other things, which there are a lot of data-hungry technologies. These technologies, I mean, yes, COVID did add on the rocket jets behind these technologies to move much faster. I'm very sure all of you, if not used, have at least heard of, or if somebody in your home has already been tasked to order on Zomato, Swiggy, Urban Company, and so forth. Not only these technologies need data, instant data, resilient data, secure data, but at the same time, there is a lot of analytical process which goes on. So there is a huge amount of work. When I say secure data, something we all don't talk about, one of the very big growth factor for the data center industry are hackers. Because if hacker hacks your data, you want to have a backup somewhere else. That means immediately you have a double growth available, so we must thank the hackers as well. At the same time, when we are looking at automation needs and AI, ML, yes, they are great. But considering Kuruvilla ji has worked in Doordarshan and otherwise, if I may take the example of just one new segment of the industry emerging, which is OTT. So initially, sir, we used to have a live cricket match, and that was it. But now, on the OTT platform and even on a Tata Sky or somewhere, I can pause it. That means it's also getting live recorded, so there's a data need immediately. I may not only pause it, which is not much happening in cricket, but if you look at some of the European football, I can change the angle I was looking the match from. So that means there are multiple layers of data within that, so obviously size goes up. At the same time, there is something very interesting, because let's say there is a new release of movie on OTT, definitely a lot of people want to see it. So if you're going to put this somewhere in US, the latency is not going to allow you to see it very well. So I was discussing with Flo Daniels, and they did confirm. So even the temporary staging of data closer to the users or the viewers takes place. That means if there is a new Bangla movie on, higher number of Calcutta people may be likely to see it. So you will have a temporary data there till the time the usage or the viewer numbership goes down and the new movie is about to release. So even the single data is stored at so many places. Obviously, we all have seen that we were not saying so many good mornings and good evenings and happy Diwalis, and sometimes I don't even know which all festivals you get wishes for. But yes, since the communication has become easy, and we Indians especially love those posters, we don't want to type. There's a poster forward, and world complains every morning that Indians have slowed down the net. But all this is also stored. So the data need is huge. So if I really look at what we were doing 5 years back and how much of data usage we are doing, and at that point of time, whatever CAGR number is being talked about, I think it's very, very low number. So while we are celebrating the growth, but it's a growth, when your kid had the potential to score 95%, you're scoring 75. I'm playing against Bangladesh, I should have made 220 overs, but I'm making 120 and I'm still celebrating. So it's also a challenge. All of us, part of the industry, need to understand and ensure that we need to capture the missing potential, the missing growth that we are having. And that's where I want to talk about a little bit. And even if you look at data, it's very visible. This is the data with other countries, right? So even if you look at, well, obviously, the New Zealands and those places are still far more digitized. They started much earlier. Indonesia, and there are a lot of other places which are far ahead. So there is a lot to be done as well, apart from just the celebration and what all we have achieved. And again, this is my personal assessment with like the caveats come in. The show organizers may not be blamed for anything which is not liked by people. So I can be blamed. I'm happy to be blamed. So when we're looking at globally, how this data center industry is comparing, because if you looked at the CAGR and growth and a lot of other factors, you must have also seen, is the North America, which is going to bring the maximum growth. And data is not like water. You need to make huge effort to transfer. You have pipes. Pipes are very efficient these days. You need to ensure that you become a preferred place to store data. Not only yours, but even the world's data. Why not? Because you have infra cost which is much lower. Imagine the cost of a tier B Indian city to make a building and run a building vis-a-vis Tokyo, New York, or even tier B or tier C city of USA or Europe. So you are straightway serving that as an advantage to the world. Forget India, to the world. Ops cost. Our salaries, moment they compare it to dollars, pounds, any other currency, they look so reasonable. So you are, again, getting a lot of good ops cost on the table. Connectivity, I'm cutting it out. We're not well placed. In spite of whatever has happened in the country, our connectivity is not great. Even, yes, the number of users, and I'm very sure if you want to see how well connected we are, forget the big optics and everything else. Whichever mobile telephony provider, service provider has given you a SIM card, you will have a lot of outages. Forget the slowness. Because we have 1.3 billion, nobody was ready for it. But we love to exchange data. We love wishing each other. We love to see, we love all these things. So the connectivity is not ready. And this is something, a very, very serious play we need to work on. Otherwise, not only will not be our preferred partners for local data, international data we can forget about. Security, I'm putting a question mark, because till now we have not even understood security. as very correctly said, it's data security is very complex. It is far more complex. And when I mention about security, I do not only want to put InfoSec professionals in place, I do want to include the law of the country, the law enforcement of the country, and judiciary of the country. Because all they are responsible to ensure if data is secure. If one of them doesn't understand what is data security, we will not have data security with us. Without taking any names, if I mention about an incident, you will understand that how intelligent or how much sarcastic I can be about the subject. So there was a particular Jayanti coming up of Baba Bhimrao Ambedkar, and as you know, a lot of people actually do searches for pictures and they want to make their own posters. Even if they're going for a rally, they want to carry a poster to show affection to that particular leader, deity, or otherwise. So somebody was doing that search, and he scrolled down further to find a better picture because the top pictures he thought were common. He wanted something unique. Almost on the second page, there was a picture of a nude girl, but it came under searches of Baba Rao Ambedkar picture. He felt offended. Okay, rightly so. He went to police, lodged a complaint. FIR was also filed against the company, which was the search engine, giving you search results. Now, I'm okay with this individual not understanding how these search results, a logarithm or something happens. But what about the guy who has not only taken the complaint, put even FIR, and there were notices served to that search engine company, and I was somewhere involved in the overall dealing and advising. So finally, when search engine company is explaining, saying, well, again, you'll be able to know that it was Google. That's the most popular search engine company in the world. The IPS officer says, okay, if it's a logarithm which has pulled all this out, please bring your logarithm to me, I'd like to review it. Google's logarithm is multi-billion-dollar logarithm. That's what is there, in a way, oxygen. Now here's one IPS officer says, bring it on, I want to review it. It is surely the lack of understanding how this business is run. Believe me, when I work with a lot of data center operators and builders, till date, they have this fear that one day, one of the enforcement agency of India can walk into my data center and will say, seal it, band karo sab kuch, because I have complained against you. And this is real fear. This is all showing when we're talking about data security or the legal position or the government policy, we have not worked enough. People who are lawmakers or law enforcement, and I will also put judiciary into it, we have not done enough. And this will never allow us to have any international data coming here, adding to the growth, creating new jobs, adding to the economy. Rather, it will continue to have the fear that even if possible, your local data will go outside. Right? So that's something I'm putting a question mark, but if I add on to the legal position in government policy, it becomes a cross. Local demand going up, yes. Tech support, we even are running data centers world over. So we can run our own data centers as well. We are best of the professionals there. So tech supports and anything that's needed, it's wonderfully available. At the same time, we have to understand that data has always been very, very important. Maybe the friends from forces will understand that if you know where has enemy hidden the weapons, thieves know where have you hidden your jewelry or thing, everything, this data. If known, then data security is important, so we need to play on all these factors. But what do we do? Again, my medicine. Works or not is a second choice. People even take it or not is a second choice. I think one is, when we say demand for data, we need to carefully work as an industry and policy makers together, that we are able to create not only the local data stays local, because of all the benefits of ops, cost and things we bring in. How does we even become a preferred location for international data to come in here? Because there are certain data which is very soon going to become restricted. GDPR, the European law, right? Privacy law. US has a lot of data restriction in terms of what can go out of the country, what can stay there. You may not be knowing that a lot of IT players in India, when the people log in and work on their computing machines, they actually directly log into a server in USA or wherever they don't know. It's not locally here. Not even any storage happens locally. All this is because there are restrictions. So very soon, every country in the world, maybe don't count Africa as in it, they have not joined the game. Every country in the world will make it very clear. This is my country data, comes under a restricted category, it cannot go out. And then there'll be a second category of data which will remain open, which can be stored anywhere. And this open category data, a lot of it is, which is already with private players. For example, Google, Facebook, all these private players, Twitter. And believe me, these players have more amount of data even than the government agencies now. Because everybody is part of it, everybody's celebrating there, everybody putting pictures, and at the same time, I want my picture of 20 years back also to be available when I want to see it. So all this will ensure that there is lot of data which will not be under restricted category. And as of now, Indian data centers, because of all these factors we just spoke, have not even raised their hand that please bring it here. We are already overwhelmed fulfilling certain demands created by RBI saying my financial data will not go out. Another agency saying this, privacy law coming up, maybe it'll put some restrictions. We are already overwhelmed because we are not able to develop our infrastructure to match those needs. Forget about putting our hand up and saying, international data, bring it on. That's where we need to be. That's where the industry has to play a role, government has to play a role. It's a national agenda, we should see it that way. It's a serious matter. So I will say, yes, demand for data. How do we ensure the demand for data, local storage goes up? Competency, yes, when I say competency, while we have tech support and a lot of other factors, but when it comes to the first step is the physical infrastructure, the second step, the technical infrastructure, third step of getting the right connectivity, fourth step of getting the right analytical players and other processing zones so that how it's stored, how it's managed is done, and then reaching the advanced stage of AI and ML. In this complete food chain, we do lack somewhere. When we are building up data centers, believe me, till today, there are a lot of developers who don't even know what is resiliency linked to data center. Till today, our MEP consultant is still deciding where all the cameras should be put in. An electrical cabling guy, since he has put cable till a point, camera wahi lagega. These are lack of competencies because after all, there is a certain methodology, there are certain tier-based systems within the data center which demand all these aspects. So let's jump up from the nurseries and KGs and kindergartens to at least next level. It'll take time for us to reach college, but the competency on terms of giving confidence to international and local data center owners that we can handle it is very much needed. Now this no interference zone and again very unique thing I'm going to say may not be liked. Like Dr. Tyagi said, STPI made unique zones and all this was done. It's really time to create a zone within the country which is not regulated by the country. Let there be 100-acre, 5 places in India where none of the Indian laws are applicable. Let's be that bold. There will no such agency just walks inside and says, I'm here. No, this is outside the Indian laws. There are special laws for here. This is data center unit, which is feeding the world whatever data it needs. Can we be that bold? And a lot of countries have done it. We have started doing it as well, not that it's alien for us. GIFT City, Gujarat. We are doing that. So if we can be that bold, we will change the world map of data centers, not only with what we do locally. And it's not so difficult. It's just about understanding what it is and saying, yes, it can be done. Well, last but not the least, I already said, resiliency is a challenge that we are working on. Yes, power is something which is not available to citizens till today. It's a national sort of a shame we all live with. But yes, if you need data centers, you need connectivity, you need power, you need response, and we're not up to the mark on those. And believe me, if we can achieve all this, we should really be looking at a CAGR growth of 50% and nothing less than that. So my appeal possibly from this platform, which has been so nicely designed, is that let's strive more, let's look at, there's a bigger potential we all live with, and let's look at 50% growth very soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much indeed, sir, for that wonderful presentation. And now, ladies and gentlemen, before we close the proceedings of the inaugural session, I would request Mr. Shashidharan to kindly do the honors of presenting a memento as a token of gratitude and appreciation to all our eminent speakers. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, I would now request Shri George Kuruvilla to kindly do the honors of presenting. We begin by presenting to our keynote speaker, Mr. Tanuj Bhatnagar. I would request all of you to kindly step forward. Thank you very much indeed. We present to Shri Vivek Duaji. Thank you, sir, for that wonderful presentation we had from you. We present to Dr. Devesh Tyagi. Thank you, sir. We present to Shri Golok Kumar Simli ji. Thank you, sir. We once again thank you, sir, for that informative address we had from you. And we present to Mr. Gary Singh, President IIRIS Consulting. And I would now request Mr. Shashidharan to present to our guest of honor, Shri George Kuruvilla. Let's put our hands together for him. And I would request the panel for a group photograph. May I request our eminent panel for the inaugural session for a group photograph. And ladies and gentlemen, with that, we now break for tea. Tea break will be of 15 minutes only. We are already running behind schedule. We would request all of you to kindly be back in time and be seated for the next session, which is session 2 of technical presentations. Also, for the kind attention of all our eminent speakers, before you proceed for tea, we would request you to kindly load your presentations with us if you haven't done so far. Thank you.
AMC, but there's something other than the Superdome.